Sometimes you have to do that because the easy challenge is one you'll get lazy with. The big challenge gets you hungry.
Oh, how the tables turn.
That's a heavy topic, and we need to focus on that. If not for yourself, then do it for your children.
Black book is in black.
Hey,
Black
book.
Men Talk, Black Book. What is going on, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And since 2020, the team I'm a part of with Dove Men Plus Care has reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We are broadcasting on June 15th, 2025. What day is it? What day is it? Oh, yeah, it's Father's Day. Yeah, so we want to say a big shout out to fathers, dads, whether they're with us or not with us anymore. Also, male caregivers. Also, there is a segment of the population who would love to be dads, but for whatever reason, they can't be dads at this time. I just want to give them a big shout out and really excited about the conversation today. Usually joined by Kofi Sadat and Kofi Morris. And I know they're both been delayed. Well, Kofi Sadat was traveling back from being at a beach during the day. He said he'll be on in the next 10 to 15 minutes. We're speaking of that. And Kofi Morris, he said he had a family event. He'd be here, but then he sent a text message to us about an hour ago saying, but I unexpected another family event. So we're speaking that, family first, no problem. If he has a chance to jump in, no problem. If you are watching this live, what did you do for Father's Day? We'd love to know. Myself, it's been more like a Father's Week in a lot of ways. As I mentioned at the beginning, part of a team that's a collaboration with Dove Men Plus Care, and we had an opportunity to collaborate with them on a campaign on LinkedIn talking about my most important role, hashtag my most important role. And that's all about a lot of dads who are in the work, corporate world especially, talk when they get promotions or changing of jobs. They highlight it on LinkedIn. Well, we flipped the script a little bit, or Dove Men Plus Care and Dad Central, the organization I'm a part of. We flipped the script a little bit. We asked dads to go on LinkedIn and talk about posts. They got a new job or a job they've had for a long time that they've never put on LinkedIn, being a dad. And they hashtag, when we're doing the posts, hashtag it my most important role. Great campaign. I'm speaking it that we just don't celebrate it during Father's Day. We do it all year round, not just highlighting one day, but every day we highlight that. That's one thing we did. I had one of my cousins who's older than me. He came by another cousin's place. Was it 2 nights ago? Hey, he says, "Hey, I'm in town." I said, "Wow." And he's like a father figure. And I said, "Oh, let's hang out." So we hung out. We went yesterday over to my dad's house. Like they got there. I got there. I spent about 2-3 hours there. They spent about 6 or 7 hours there. It was out of bounds. It was such a great experience. Just hearing stories, a lot of stories that my dad had never shared before. Amazing, amazing stuff. Then this morning, went out and we ran into them. And then I took my dad out to dinner. Not dinner, sorry, lunch. It was like 1:30. So I don't know what you call that. Lupper? Between lunch and supper, or do you call it brunch? Brunch and lunch. I don't know. But to lupper. Let's call it lupper. I've created a new word today on Father's Day, lupper. And we had a great meal, relaxed, hung out for a few hours, and we went back to my dad's place, the parents' place, hung out a little bit more. And then I said, you know what? It's time to get back to the grind of putting shows on. So that's why we're here on Black Canada Talking today. So what did you do for Father's Day? Or actually, another story, another father I ran into today, and he looked down. And I thought he was down because, maybe something wasn't going right with him and his kids. But he really was down because his dog was beginning to fade. And and we went and had I consoled him, and I'm going to say the word nurtured him for about 15 minutes. It was a great conversation. It was a powerful conversation. He said, "You know what? You're like a dad to me." I go, "Really?" Okay, no problem. That's okay. And just, if you're a dad, male caregiver, father figure, etc., being present is one thing, but having presence is another thing. Let me put it that way. Having presence when, not only when times are going fantastic, but when times are going like the down with someone, presence. Having presence with, as a father, whether a role model, you have kids, or you don't have kids, you are a father if you choose to be. 100%. You can have positive impact. Every step you take, every move you make, you can have positive impact. I had a chance. I just put out on my Instagram about an hour and a half ago, a post, and it's funny. Getting back to the restaurant we went to for lunch, or lupper, that's my new word, lupper. Maybe Dr. Tachi will allow me. Dr. Tachi always brings out the new words, but for lupper, I asked some of the people there. So was it? It was okay. It wasn't ridiculously busy. They're doing a lot of takeout, but there wasn't a lot of people. It's okay. It was okay in the restaurant. It wasn't super, super, super busy. And I asked some of the staff, is it busier on Mother's Day or Father's Day? Guess which one it was? Mother's Day. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So we have to I also characterize it too, if you watch any pro sports, a lot of times when they put the camera on one of the athletes, who do they say hi first to? A lot of the time. Who do they say hi first to? They say hi to mom. A lot of times they don't say hi to dad. Fathers, male caregivers, your roles are critically important in this world today. Critically important. Actually, there was a quote today that one of my mentors shared that I thought was so right on. Let me see if I can pull it up. It was about men in general. It was he was doing a talk about fathers, but he included men in general. It was such a powerful quote. Okay, here we go. In my phone. Jealousy. Let's see. Oh, let me see. So this is a message for fathers and men, especially on this day and every day. If we don't talk it out, we act it out. If we don't talk it out, we act it out. Thought that was such a powerful question, or a powerful statement. It just sort of like froze me. Really, really froze me. And more as I go along in these journeys, especially assisting men, fathers, male caregivers, I have more and more moments that sort of freeze me in time saying, wow, that was so good. I have to use that in other places during my journey. I really, really enjoyed that. So that's a little bit that's been going on Father's Day week. If anyone has any father stories they'd like to share, hey, whether it's live on the replay, please put them in the chat. That would be much appreciated. Okay. You know what? Let me just see if there's any other stories I want to share over the past week. I'm thinking. Anything else I want to share? Well, it was cool to have my cousin. He's having around to his son going, but hold on, guy, you got your own family, but none of the kids live at home anymore. And they're spread out all over the place. But he chose to spend time with myself and my dad. That was meaningful. Got some pictures taken. I realized that in Canada, we are the 3 oldest guys left living. And it hit me. I was driving out today, and that sort of hit me going, wow. The 3 of us are the oldest. That hit me. That really hit me today, that experience of going, wow. And if things happen, I was going to say this word, in natural progression, whatever natural means, they're going to transition before I do. And that's going to be then me taking the baton. I also want to say I'll save that hopefully when Kofi Sadat comes. There's a lot of things I want to share. But what we're going to do, and there's people watching live. So if you are watching live right now, please feel free to shout yourself out. Tell us where you're chiming in from. Mr. Sadat is here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on a 30-second break, and we're going to bring Kofi Sadat in. So we'll be back in 30 seconds. Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Vibe here. So let's bring her up. She has been with us for a number of months now. This lady called Minnie on cam.
And that was the thing when I learned about lifting yourself out of poverty. It's actually a specific financial number if you look at all your numbers. And now I see it happening to people in the BIPOC community. I don't need my phone for every moment. Culturally, our family doesn't let us sit down and do nothing.
Love that. The Morning Vibe. Monday and Friday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, where you can catch myself and usually Ryan O'Neill Knight, but he's on a little bit of sabbatical for this month. We're speaking, he's going to be back in July. That's what you can check out. So let's say you're watching Black Men Can Talk, a show where Black Canadian men come together, have real unfiltered conversations about life, culture, and community. Also, if you want to subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, hit the notification button and also subscribe. Make it happen. Also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm on. Please, please, please email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Join our Discord group by emailing me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. So let's bring up Mr. Sadat. Kofi Sadat is in the house. What is up?
I'm good. How you doing, family?
Outstanding. How are you, Beach Bum?
Good. I'm great. I'm as I said before, I just came back from Coburg Beach out in Coburg, just east of Scarborough. That'll be my point of
more east of Oshawa than Scarborough, buddy.
You know. I'm just giving a point of reference, right? It's about an hour outside of Scarborough, maybe 40 minutes outside of Oshawa. So it was a good little drive. Me and the family decided to do something different on Father's Day, get out of the city and just, be in nature,
Nice.
And stuff like that. So it was a good vibe, man. It was a good vibe.
How was that experience
today? It was great just to, sometimes you want to be in environments where you don't know everybody or people don't know you. I've gone to Coburg Beach before years ago, and for those who live in Canada, they're like, a beach? Yeah, it's a beach. There were a lot of people there. The only thing, it was a great time. We did a little barbecuing, kids did some racing and just kind of like chilled, right? Which was really good because, the young men and young women, they were doing their thing. They did the food, everything like that. I didn't have to worry about that. So
is that nice? Isn't that beautiful?
Wonderful. The only thing, and I don't know about it exactly why this happened, but the beach, so the water itself was very polluted. There were like a lot. Oh, it was crazy. There were a lot of fish that
Ooh.
was, on the shore. Like, of course,
Ooh.
striped fish. Like you could see the water was green and whatnot. So I don't
Ooh.
know if they're going to be cleaning that up, but it was really
Ooh.
different years ago when I went there.
Oh,
Right. So
wow. That's disappointing to hear.
it was. I mean, it was still, the water was still beautiful in terms of, like, the docks and stuff like that. But definitely, putting a word out there, if something that can be cleaned up. That was the only thing because I really wanted to get in that water. I kind of had that water energy.
It's not that warm, buddy.
No, 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 no. I was gonna dip a toe into the water. I
Okay.
wasn't gonna swim.
Okay.
So, but trust me, if I dipped a toe, I might be coming back to Toronto with like one less toe. It
Yeah.
was that, yeah, yeah. That, but you know what? That did not, um, you know, take away from what a beautiful day was to get outside of the city. And yeah, it'll be something I think I'll be doing on a regular basis, right? Just to again get to some different places. Ontario is beautiful. So I want to explore some other places that I, have not been to in a while or never been at all. What
Cool.
about you? How was your day?
Well, I still want to give it some hugs to you virtually. You also had an event last Friday.
Yes, yes. Oh, that was an incredible event. Hopefully I see if I can bring up some pictures from the event during the show. But hey, I really want to give it out to all the folks who came out and supported it. We had Delta Family Services, the Baba Roots program. Brother Nathan came out, who we had on the show last week, and showed his support. Brought some fathers from the area. Um, Negus, he led some drumming. Brother Ian or Kwabena, he did some drumming and some capoeira. But the gentleman, what I love about it, and the sisters who came out, in support of the family and the children, people just take over the events, and I love that. They just do their thing. We lit a fire, um, had nice food, of course. Big shouts to Honey Guru. We've also had him on the show before. We had some nice, jerk chicken and rice and peas. I had my chickpea and pumpkin and whatnot. So it was just like blessed. You know what I mean? And I know Kofi put a question today out there, and it was something that we posed in the circle, like what is fatherhood, right? And we got some really good answers from the folks that were there. Some things that I do remember that folks were talking about was really how much it's just an honor to be a father, right? Like we often don't look at it as, we often are in this narrative, just, as we are kind of looking at the struggles of things, but, just thinking about it's an honor to father, whether it's your biological or in your community. It's just really an honor to be able to be entrusted to guide, right? And father in that sense. So I thought it was beautiful that they talked about, the honor of the fatherhood journey, the challenges, but the challenges actually were indication that you're doing things, right? Because without struggle, there's no real progress. But really, those challenges really are just like just part of the journey, right? Like it was so beautiful. Yeah.
You and I both have the lens to a lot of Black fatherhood, past, present, and God willing, future.
Mhm.
Uh, compare the state of Black fatherhood today to maybe 10, 15 years ago.
I'd answer this question in two ways, to be honest with you. And the two ways that I would answer the question, one is from, let's say, from a community work perspective, right? In terms of, you know, 10 years ago, there were, some father programs, but I've just seen a lot more out there now. Kudos to a lot of the brothers out there who are doing some work, and the families, not just the brothers, the sisters supporting it as well. So I think there's been a lot more programs. The other piece, I find that there's been a lot more open conversations, right, from fathers about their journey. And I always come back to this whenever I talk about this to people. The whole piece around Black Men Can Talk is to create that opportunity for others to talk. So I think there's been a lot more talking now, especially many of us who grew up in environments where our fathers did not do a lot of talking, or that wasn't, either talking to us or just talking in general about being a father, right? We didn't hear a lot of that. So it's good to see that shifted. And I think what I love the most, the third thing I would say, is really the sharing of the stories of involved fathers, right? When they're sharing the stories of their children and their families, and they're so enthusiastic, and they want to kind of like really be proud of that piece, right? So that whole sharing, I love it. I love to hear it, you know what I mean? And it doesn't mean everything has to go perfect, but there's just the sharing around, this is my journey as a father. So I think a lot of those things have positively improved when it comes to the fatherhood journey. Of course, some things we still need to improve and be better at, of course. But I think for the most part, my experience is that I've seen so much more, so much more involvement with that, and so I love it so much. Hey, greetings, brother Kofi. How you doing?
Good, brother. Good. Greetings to the family. If everybody's well, sounds like we're digging into this tonight's topic, and I'm glad to hear this. What you're sharing there, because one of the first things that popped in my mind is what you said about sharing, about dialogue, about just reasoning amongst ourselves in terms of things that are important to us, and which also helps to balance out a lot of the things that we work through on a day-to-day basis that we may not get the opportunity in the spaces that we're in to have a safe space to reason on. So it's interesting because I don't know how our forefathers did it. Like they were working through so much at those times and not having a space that you could reason. I guess the rum shops or these places where playing cards or dominoes or these kind of spaces were maybe some of those spaces, but I still don't think they had the level of dialogue sometimes that we have these days relative to certain things. So that kind of, I didn't hear what the question was that maybe was posed.
I can bring that to you. I was just asking Sadat, compare Black fatherhood now to 15 years ago.
Okay. Wow. So, apologies to folks for coming in. I had a dinner number 2 I was attending tonight, but I wanted to make sure that I got on. So I think a couple things that directly come to mind, and it ties into what we were just talking about. It's the ability to be able to share certain things in a way that is perhaps more vulnerable now, in amongst others that are your peers, because that wasn't really the vibe back then, from what I saw. I can link up brethren right now, my close brethren to our fathers, and discuss anything from, like our daughters having boyfriends to, navigating different spaces that, again, like our parents and our foreparents didn't really deal with, conversations around LGBTQ and like, content in classrooms and different things like that. That wasn't a conversation back then. Those weren't topics that were being addressed, especially in social spaces, right? So those touchy subjects sometimes that we could have a dialogue today about versus back then. I don't even think it was like something that you looked at as being a conversation that you would have amongst your friends. It's not something that's like a one-off. Maybe you might broach a subject, but challenges in relationships, counseling, going for therapy, talking to a professional. It's funny, my dad's calling. My dad's calling as I'm on the call. Talking to a professional.
Okay. Well, if you need to speak to him, no problem.
No, it's cool. I saw him earlier today. So, talking to a professional about whether let's say it's a health related issue. Being able to like delve into that and some of those things, again, we still have some challenges with when it comes to health, especially, but this whole piece around the cancers that are affecting us and affecting our community, death, transition, like these things that were just uncomfortable. Life insurance, like a lot of these kind of touchy topics, that it wasn't, I guess, something socially acceptable to talk about with people outside of your family. We were very protective. I think their generation grew up very protective, and it was like, unless you needed to share that, you don't really open up the door. But I see even some of the older folks now having some of the conversations that they wouldn't have had back in the day. The door's open for them to actually have it now, right? Even relative to some of what I just described. So I think those are some of the shifts that I'm seeing.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to shout out Together We Organize Inc. says 100, way more conversation and dialogue today than in the past. So that's good to see that we're seeing way more conversation and dialogue today. And also I see here we have some pictures. So Paul, I'm going to put up some pictures from the event. So let's go for it. There we go.
There you go. So yeah, that was the events. As you see, it was nice. We had the fire burning in the background. We had some drumming, lots of food, and community come out. And one thing I want to say, is it was so magical, is that once we started playing the drums, so we're in the middle of a community, the park is Taylor Creek Park, and once we started playing drums, folks from around the neighborhood started coming in. It's almost like there was an echo. And interesting enough, there was an elder. His name was Johannes, and he was at home, and he heard the drums. Saying to his wife and his children, I hear drums. And they're like, "Yo, you're crazy. There are no drums because it's a park. There's no drumming happening in the park, right?" They kept saying to him, he's like, "Yo, you know what? I'm gonna follow that sound." So he came from his building, came all the way down, crossed into the park where we were, and he was like, he goes, "This is just amazing." He goes, "I just felt the vibe." I felt the vibe, and he stayed for the whole event.
Nice.
Right. And it's East African brother from Ethiopia. So he was sharing, the importance of drum in his culture as well, and all of us connecting, and how the drum just, not just calls us, but unifies us. So that was a beautiful moment. We broke bread, make sure, he had some food, stayed all the way to the end. Different community members were coming from all over.
Nice.
That neighborhood. So it was a really powerful, and not just really about the drumming, but some of the dialogue that we were having, like the words sound power, the energy was pulling people in. So it's just a beautiful time. Yeah.
Nice. Let's show another picture here. This and go here.
Yeah. So this is the circle. And I want to say again, it was so beautiful because it was not just, men or Black fathers, but, you had women, you had children, and everybody sharing, the importance of fatherhood to them. We have some video as well, so we'll probably share that in a couple of weeks. But it was just really powerful, and the space itself is just ideal. You see the circle of stones, you're in nature. It was just like perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's see. We might as well talk about it because we will chat. Why do you think, quote, the absent Black father, unquote, stereotype persists, and how does it impact families and communities?
Mm-hmm. Did you want to go, Kofi?
So a couple of things come to mind, right, relative to this, and we have to be able to tackle it to recognize that like there's systemic things that have been set up that impact our community greatly on various levels, and this is one of them, right? But to go back just in terms of the role of the father, if you look at it traditionally, so much of our history speaks to involve fathers. So oftentimes I have to ask the question, like, where does this come from? Where does this even, if we really look at core statistics and numbers and stuff like that, they often don't correlate. So I have to look at it to ask, where did this come from? Where did this stem from? The government, for those that are not aware, again, for us here in Toronto and Canada, there are resources provided, of course, when you're in a low income scenario, low income neighborhoods, etc., where individuals are seeking support financially. Oftentimes, things like being able to get support when you have multiple children, it has been something that as a community, it's kind of been an approach to be able to to defend your own food, clothes, and shelter, is to take those government checks, if that makes sense. And how they set it up is that if the mother has multiple children, that check that's coming in is specific to the fact that she's a single mother. So even in scenarios where the father is actually not absent, the father is in the picture, you look at it, and what has happened is that the opportunity at times for the mother, the family in that case, to utilize those checks for a child is incumbent on the fact that the father is not present in the house. So I think that started one way and it ended up another way, because there would be visits to that house and stuff like that, and they'd have to prove the father's not there. So even if the father, again, is in the family playing a role, connected, etc., don't make sure his shoes are not there, make sure his clothes, make sure there's no sight of him being present. So I think what had happened is that it was something that started out in a way to say, well, the government shouldn't be providing this check if there's another income earner in the house. But
Right.
then it became the benefit of not having another income earner in the house, and people communally got to the point where it was like, it makes more sense for us to say he's not around. And I think that had actually started to perpetuate as being a reality, when in a lot of cases, a lot of those fathers were still present. They were still connected to their family and to their children. But it actually pushed out some fathers physically from those homes and spaces and actually created conflict. And I think to some degree that has benefited, the powers that be, that don't have any interest in us as a community actually having healthy families, actually having, because again, the birth rate and these types of things comes into play in this conversation, because we've never had an issue with that. We've not had an issue, being able to be fruitful in terms of us having children. So I just think it's another, in some cases, it's another tactic, but I can also say that it has harmed us by utilizing it, and the government check, so to speak. And this goes in different spaces. This goes from the conversation we've had in previous, in regards to nonprofits taking money. It's like anytime that the hand is in the pot of those that don't have our best interests in mind, over time it harms us. And I think we haven't quite been able to acknowledge that self-sufficiency is going to be the way that we change things. And in a lot of cases, us as men, I'm looking at this picture with the men in the circle here, the power that we have when we just come together is so significant that it's a threat, that it becomes a threat to others on the outside. So I think, again, this absentee father stereotype, etc., it stems from some of the things I've described. But on the other end of it, let's be honest, some of our traditions and our culture that we've let go as families, it has harmed us in a way that is separated families in a lot of different ways, because we've come into this North American reality and we're forgetting a lot of our traditions that held us close, that held us together. Things like the rites of passage and these things, preparing young men for adulthood. Myself, Paul, we've gone through rites of passage where it's like these principles and these practices are so ingrained that it's hard to move away from them. But when you moved away from them, you tap into this North American reality that often has us not necessarily putting ourselves first. And as a family, as family environments, we start to become so individualized, and it's a man against the woman, So I think all of that has actually created scenarios of the father not being in the home and created that absentee piece that we're talking about. So it's multifaceted, you know what I mean, Dr. Vibe? But I think it's an acknowledgement that we need to go back to some of the things that we know. And we know that a lot of cases, our grandfathers, our great grandfathers that didn't necessarily have a lot of resources stayed in that home, regardless of the challenges that they had. 10, 12 children, they stayed in that home. So what was different then versus to what's happening now, and why is it that the man is no longer inside that home? There's various factors that have affected that.
True.
Anything you want to add?
I think a few things. I mean, I remember doing some work for Ujima House or Young and Potential Fathers, and that question was raised, like why? What reasons do we see, for this phenomena or this perspective, right? Which sometimes it's not always accurate, especially when it comes to stats. Black fathers are more involved than less involved when it comes to the family, and however you want to look at it. However, that narrative still exists that we are absentee fathers, and like anything else, you have to study the history of something to really know what's happening today, right? So obviously during the Ma'afa or the slave trade, it was illegal and punishable by death for Black men to father their own children, right? You didn't have a choice even to make a family. We had those who had to breed women, sometimes not out of your own choice, but you never were allowed to raise those children. It wasn't your decision to stay in the home or go, right? So after hundreds of years of those types of things, definitely it's going to shift and change the culture. For many of us who are children of the women that came here as domestic servants, where Canada says you can't bring your man, you can't bring your family, right? That's how we started. That's how my journey started. My mother came here, right, without the family, right? Luckily, I was born here, but the rest of my siblings and my dad and everybody else, right, they were under a program that you could not have a man, right, or a husband or whatever. And when you think about that, that's an intentional strategy to break the family. Who does that, right? Knowing, especially as our people and a lot of melanated people, how much family is strength, family's connection, family's culture, family's healing. So for you to say, hey, you can't have your family, right? We definitely could see if you foreshadow years later, there's going to be some challenges, right? Right. And not just challenges with us as men, but, a lot of us know about the culture of the barrel children who, your parents is here, can't bring you up, but they're sending goods and so in a barrel, but they can't send the love, right? So when the children get here, there's been so much challenges, so much written on it about those challenges, right? So I think that environment, that history definitely impacts us till today, because we are the children now turn the parents, now turn the adults that came up in that system, right? So it's going to be a challenge. And then outside of that, I think that we are doing our best. I think we are still challenged around navigating parenting in this environment, if we're to be honest, like for Black people, it is still a challenge. What are our roles, what are our responsibilities, who influences our value and our culture, right? And then within that, we're trying to make a way, because many of us, for example, are first generation, right? So as Kofi alluded to, we don't have the connection sometimes to those traditions and values, even from, before we came to Canada. So I think sometimes we got to give ourselves some credit, to be honest with you, that, we're trying to do the best we can. Yes, there's a struggle. Yes, things could be better. But I think if you look at the short amount of time we've been doing this thing, we're making probably better strides than we're actually making, falling back. So yeah. But yeah, the absent, and then the last, I know it's kind of long, but the last thing I always ask the question is, who does the narrative serve? Right? So if it's put out there that Black fathers are absentee, who does that serve? Right? And that's always a question we need to ask. Anytime someone's pushing a narrative, especially when that narrative is not coming from us, we have to figure out who does it serve. Right? So
real good, really good stuff. Good stuff, gentlemen. I know Brother Kofi mentioned it earlier on, but do you want to go a little bit deeper for our family here? What systemic barriers do Black fathers face?
So that that original conversation with regards to the breadwinner in the household, in a lot of cases, education ties into so much of our current circumstance and situation, right? And meaning that when you're not educated, and let's not even talk about the degrees, and let's talk about being able to navigate the society that you're in, the community that you're in, right? And having the education that will support you to make the wise decision in regards to what you do next. I've had conversations with different people, different spaces, and a lot of the time you'll find that when young people of various cultures are coming out of high school, they already have a plan of what they're going to do. They have an uncle somewhere in industry somewhere that's going to give them a summer job. They have somebody that's going to connect them to some kind of community center, some program. There's all these various options that they'll talk about, right? Italian, Greek, I could go down the line of various cultures. Now, in our community, sometimes you'll ask the same question to the young Black boy, and he doesn't know, right? And not only does he doesn't know, but the people that might ask him that question, that might look like me and you in terms of a male, which is like there's this aspect of accountability, because it's like you're going to be me one day. So what are you going to do when you get to my age? If the father in that case, or the some form of male role model is not present to ask that question, then there's a lack of accountability in terms of his next steps in life. So he can kind of glide. He can kind of go about, oh, I'm going to play some ball for the summer. Might get a part-time job, but we'll see. Oftentimes it was the older males that are like, yo, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? You can't just be sitting on your, like, what are you doing? Are you going to get a job? Are you going to go to school? So because some of those networks and those support systems are not present, you find that a lot of young men, they may not necessarily explore particular options that are available to them. So that's on the even non-degree side. But now let's talk about the degrees, and let's talk about going to post-secondary for something that is part of what's happening in your community, that's happening in society, that's a need, right? So various cultures, they'll say, oh, get into finance, get into the healthcare, become a doctor, become a lawyer, A, B, C, and D. So that's their trajectory. Whether they want to do it or not, they're like, you got to go to school for that. In our community, a lot of time, that hasn't been the case. Once again, that's not the trajectory. So you could say, okay, I want to make music. Okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. And sometimes it's not tangible in a sense where, and on top of that, a lot of our young Black brothers don't want to necessarily incur the debt that comes along with pursuing a degree that may not necessarily result in me getting a job, because some of the guys that I know, they're not really, they have this degree, but they're still like they're not getting the jobs. So those things are all tied. So that's just the education piece, right? But that ties into the economic factor and the ability for us to be able to, provide for our families in a way that if you don't have the background, you may not have the uncle that's running the such and such business that can hire you, so that you have a little bit of grounding, so you can kind of catch yourself, right? So even if you end up trying to go to school and the thing doesn't work out, you could still work for Uncle's fencing company. You can still work for the landscaping. You can still you pursue your the trade or whatever that this older man is pushing you into, is promoting you to approach, right? So I think one of the systemic specific pieces, to answer your question, is economic related, ties back into a lot of times education, and not just book education, but being able to be educated on what are the steps that I can take to this next level, the next step in my manhood, that other men older than me have taken, that can kind of usher me in and support me in order to make the wise decision. And if things don't work out, I still have a fallback plan. So that's the piece I would touch on there. Education, economics, directly connected.
Anything you want to add?
I'll add the piece around health, right? And the impact that I see with my brothers around me. Really, the health is a critical factor in terms of your ability to parent if you're not healthy, or if you have health challenges. And I'm going to link some of these health challenges, whether it's on the mental health or the physical or spiritual health challenges, right? Many of the systems that we're in are not the most friendly to folks that look like us. And therefore, that causes the apprehension that when we're not feeling well, that we are not going to be going to that hospital. Do we have a physician that, hey, as a Black man, if I'm experiencing certain things that are not comfortable, that I can say, hey, you know what? Let me just, because there's a cultural connection, let me ask this physician about the mental health, right? We know already the challenges. So now if my health is not balanced, right, I find definitely, it becomes challenging to parent, right? Because of course you have to deal with yourself first. But I think, we have these systems that, are failing us in many ways. And, when we do need the help, many times, unfortunately, it becomes a little bit late. Like, in my life, I would say there's so many brothers I know that it seems like they've been passing away or been very sick from very curable things, right? But I get the discomfort. I experience it myself. And, I don't always feel comfortable going to a doctor because you don't always get that empathetic ear, right? Or you feel that, you should know better, right? Because that's some of the narratives that we get. We should have known better, right? But I think that's a huge issue. And I know this might be a topic for another time, but I've really been wondering about this lately. Is I think we need to measure the impact of the pandemic on Black people and Black men specifically.
If we had the applause sound right now, we have to play it right now. Play the applause sound.
I'm Jamaican, so I need my gunshot. But that's a But no, really, I think that I don't know who's out there, and I'm putting it out there. I don't know if there's any studies, anything, but I think really and truly, from what I've been exposed to lately, I think on whole, we know that the pandemic has impacted our people. We know about our for those who have children, we know about the students that went through that, this and that. But I think there's something that I keep hearing around, it's kind of like a before and after, So before the pandemic, I was doing this and that. Now after, I'm not dealing with certain things that I was before, or things happen then and I don't feel okay about it, but nobody's really addressing that impact.
Okay,
right?
So I just did some quick research on that, and maybe we can go into a deeper conversation. But in the area of health, higher COVID-19 infection and death rates, more chronic conditions. This is all in regards to Black men. Okay.
Yeah.
And economy, job loss, frontline exposure, less financial safety net, mental health, increased stress and trauma,
Mhm.
less access to mental health care, healthcare access, less access to testing, treatment, and initial vaccine rollouts, and then family education, greater family responsibilities, educational setbacks for youth.
That sounds like a pandemic, brother. That sounds like a pandemic in itself, right? So yeah, you know what? I think,
And you could just choose one or two of those areas and look at the impact that that has on a group of people, and the fact that the same group of people that we're talking about, going on what you just said about the healthcare system, so that is like, if you're not comfortable speaking to a therapist or somebody that like can help you to walk through how these things are interconnected,
Well,
and you're just,
let's put it out there. Many black men have difficulty just talking to a doctor, a general GP, a general GP.
that's right.
100%.
That's right.
Right. Ryan Knight says that's why we need more black business, but they must be accountable and profitable so we can actually hire our youth. And also, Shakoy Hibbert puts up prayers emojis. Prayers.
How you doing, Shakoy? How you doing, Ryan? I totally agree. Hey, listen, I'm gonna plug Ryan always. You know what I mean? I love what you're doing with your business, and giving back.
Detailing nights, these systems that, like, businesses that have actually predated, again, this period of COVID, this isolation period, and are still around, are still kicking and still doing their thing. That's another statistic unto itself, right? That we haven't really looked at. A lot of businesses closed, as we know, prior to that period in time, and a part of that too is, again, the structure that would support Black business, because if already, this is prior to even having this whole big, kind of push for the Black markets, which has been amazing in terms of being able to support small Black business community and help people to build and grow. Being able to actually sustain your business when a serious shift has happened, and let's say you had to close your door and then open back up post COVID, right? Without having family support, like financial support, etc. And then the backlash of all of that is not being discussed, alluding to your point, Paul. It's like, again, the dialogue needs to stay in these spaces, but also solutions that are tied into that in terms of, what do you do now? What are the steps that you can take now? How do you navigate that now? And being able to recognize that these things are impacting us. They're impacting our relationships. Last week's show, for those that missed it, we spoke a little bit about the whole impact on relationships during that COVID period, which ties into the family unit, right? And think about it. The average rent in this city, right? These kind of things, right? The bank, the rates, the mortgage, everything, all these things are interconnected, because in our community, if you're just kind of trying to build yourself up, and then you have a family, you have a young family, you decide, okay, I'm going to run a business or do something, the business closes, impacts the family. Dynamics within this space impacts the relationships break down. Now you have two people that now have to decide, are we selling this house? What are we doing? And then one is renting, like one goes back home, whatever the case may be. There's a financial backlash within all of that. And then if we're not dealing with the things internally, like through mediation or something like that, then what are we doing? We're paying lawyers. We're getting to now paying lawyer fees and all these kind of things, which again, financial impact on family, and then family dynamics, children growing up in all of that. So you're absolutely right. Like, these are the things that need to be looked at and really analyzed to see what needs to be done to be able to now look back at what has happened, address some of those traumas and those wounds and that healing, and be able to create some kind of trajectory for what we do moving forward. Because those young people that came up in that space, a lot of them, their hope has been affected. Their ability to see a positive future has been affected. Those are the young people that are going to be the ones that we're going to for our healthcare. Those are going to be the ones that are in the hospitals. Those are the ones that are in the wherever, the gym, that all of those spaces that we're going into. These are the young people that came up in that era, that are going to be the ones that we're looking to take care of us in our old age, right? So it's like the seeds we're planting now is impacting our future and our children's future. So we really have to look at those things, because that any healthy community will do that. Any healthy community will look at these various social impacts understand that there's going to be an effect for our future. So what are we going to do now? And what are the things that we know has actually worked that we need to get back to? So touching on this healthcare piece, for example, having simple things like wellness kits in our families, wellness kits in our homes, right? People get sick, people basic cold and stuff like that. We have remedies, right? Everybody remembers the shot, right? The ginger shot. I heard the different names for it during COVID, but it was something that became a common thing, right? That people were utilizing, creating in their home, to take to be able to boost our immune systems, right? As simple as that may seem, some companies took that, bottled that, and you could go to the store and buy it now, right?
Yeah, that's the whole other thing. Yeah.
So being able to look at our traditional ways of healing, we looked within first, before we went to, like we're talking about, the doctors and all that kind of stuff, without, not with a major symptom, but like the common cold. So being able to address things and go back to traditional ways of dealing with things internally first is so important for us. And I think that's one of the solutions to some of our challenges, is looking at the strengths that we actually have within our community for healing.
Yes.
And being able to start to approach things that way, and then passing that on to the next generation. So those young people that are in college, university and stuff now, that are, getting the little coughs and the little colds, that should be able to look to their parents and be like, yo, what can I do? It's like, besides Tylenol, all these kind of things, mix up the shot and take it, do these simple things, because that ties back into our ancestry in ways that we dealt with our own common everyday healing. I'm going to stop there.
No, it's all good. That's well, Dr. Vibe, I'm always have to throw something back at you. You were talking about, what did parenting look like 10, 15 years ago, as compared to today. But I know you do a lot of work in the space with Black men, Black fathers. I'm going to ask you the visionary question, because you're the visionary vibe. What do you think parenting, Black parenting or Black fatherhood may look like in 10 years?
Great question. The success of Black fatherhood relies on the success of Black fathers working together.
Sure.
I'm going to go back to this, and I say it many a time with both you, live and off air. There are many, many pockets of organizations that are assisting Black fathers, doing a fantastic job. That's great. But this is imperative. There's strengths in numbers. There has, and I just want a gathering. My vision of Black fatherhood is I can only speak in the GTA. That's where I live, Greater Toronto area. There is a getting together of organizations. I see it with a few. I'd like to see more. And also intergenerational conversations and relationships within Black fatherhood.
Needed.
There seems to be, from my lens, there is a group of Black elder fathers. There's many of them out there that we could all learn from, who are waiting to give and serve at least their thoughts, their opinions. And it's interesting. Sometimes I just look at organizations and say, how come you're not care? I just say, there's got to be a reason. None of my business. So the success of Black fatherhood relies on the Black fathers working, winning, fighting together.
I love the vision. So you're a visionary, brother.
That's what I would love to see, because, and I may get some trouble for this, but I'm going to put it out there.
All right.
A number of these organizations know what these other organizations are doing out there. My question is, why isn't there collaboration? That is our ancestry.
Yep.
Right. And I'm saying, what has been lost? And it's not getting any easier out there.
Nope. It's not.
It's funny. I watched something the other day, and there was this non-melanated gentleman being interviewed. He's regarded as one of the top divorce lawyers in America. This gentleman asked him, what he goes, what do you feel the state of marriages in America? From his lens, well, right now, and I'm sure in Canada it's pretty much the same, 50% of the marriages end up in divorce in North America.
Mhm.
And then there's another 25% where either one of the people, and this is not on if it's relationship, marriage, whatever, and there's another 25 where one of the partners at least is not happy. So if you're looking at 75% of the relationships are not good, if there are children involved, can you see the ripple effect on that?
For sure. For sure.
And the ripple effect on Black father.
That's right.
Right? The studies show Black men are more engaged with kids than most other cultures. Now, the sad thing is we have less opportunity in a lot of ways to be engaged.
True.
Which is a whole other conversation about family law, all that sort of stuff. And I could go on deeper. I know time doesn't permit that. That's just some of the things that are going on in my alleged mind right now. I'm more than ever concerned about the state of Black fatherhood because, yes, there's a lot of good stuff and there's a lot of conversations, but they only seem to stay at that moment.
All right.
So my suggestion is there has to be systems in place to eradicate the one-off conversations to make them consistent conversations. If a Black father has an emergency at 2:00 in the morning, does he have someone he can call to help? Whether it's
I was going to put out call 1-800-Dr. but we're not there yet. But I hear what we're saying.
Yeah. So I'm going to even put something more controversial.
All right.
I get more calls and requests of assistance from non-melanated fathers than melanated fathers.
Say that again. Say that again, brother.
I get more. Now, part of it, maybe I don't get out there, but I maybe, and people say, well, you're not out there enough. I'm out enough.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not out as much as Kofi and Sadat, but they need, let me put it out there, gentlemen. Do you get enough? Do you feel that you should be hearing more from Black fathers?
I think what you're talking about comes back to the same thing we're saying, right? Black fathers being comfortable enough, a shift in culture that when we need the help, we need to ask for the help. And I think that's where we're evolving. We're not quite there, right? We're not quite there. So, sometimes, I get those calls and sometimes I have to make those calls myself. Right. But I think we have not evolved there as yet as, other cultures, because there's cultural safety also involved with me, as a Black man kind of putting it all out there. And we talked about that around, what's this person going to take away? I'm already kind of on the the side around, should I have done this? So I think what you said is probably accurate. But I think, as a future state, it's a good place to go. Right?
Well, one of the concerns I have, and I'm more and more concerned than ever, is there's many Black fathers / Black men that are screaming and nothing's coming out.
Yeah, of course.
So Shakoy, you've got some comments here. This is the first time tuning, probably saying in. I wasn't sure if it was an open space for listening, discussing. Of course it's an open space for us to listen, for you to listen, discuss. Want to get your comment up there. All right. And then you also say, I also thought that Dr. Vibe, why aren't we working together? That's a whole episode, but I believe we need to talk about that. I don't believe we need to talk about that. Not I believe we need to. And you say, can you share my info, Dr. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. It just, it's a whole other conversation, I think, series wise, that we need to talk about. Why aren't we as Black men working more together? I'm not saying we're not working together.
Yeah, more, yeah.
Working more together. on that note, unless you have anything else, I think we'll cut it from there because both of you have had long days. We've all had long days.
There you go. There you go, for sure. So thank you for providing the space again, Dr. Vibe, today.
All of us.
Really, you know, I'm glad that
it's a co-creative. It's co-creative.
Yeah. We're deciding to come on today and making sure we can hold that. So, you know, I'm appreciative of my brothers. I always want to say that, you know, give the flowers now, not wait till later. So giving thanks, you know.
You know what? Actually,
Kofi and Dr. Vibe.
Can I interject? Could I have my permission to interject on that?
Go ahead.
It was interesting the other day, a gentleman who I respect, I won't mention his name here, he said he doesn't mind black men getting flowers, but he feels what black men need more are hugs. Just a thought.
All right. Okay. I like that.
Just a thought. All right. So if you want to get a hold of Kofi Sadat, email is up there. Instagram is up there. And again, you have one of the coolest Instagram handles. It's so cool. I love it. There's YouTube, Facebook, etc., etc. Then Kofi Morris, Mr. Kofi Morris, who has his email address, Instagram, 2 Instagrams because he dominates, and on Facebook, he's also there. And then you can catch myself, website, the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at the Dr. Vibe Show, X/Twitter at drvibeshow, email dr at the drvibeshow.com. Also on Substack and on Blue Sky, and you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and the Dr. Vibe Show website. I'm Paul Osbourne on Facebook. Got 2 more comments here. Shakoy says, this was amazing. Well, if it's amazing, wherever you're watching this, like it, tell people about it. We'd love you to do that. And keep on bringing the questions. And Shakoy, if you want to come on one time, the mic's open and join our conversation.
There you go.
You know, the mic is open. This is a co-creative process, and we need our black women. I don't call you queens anymore. I just call you black women.
There you go.
You know,
so I want to also add to folks, you know, look out for this. We're going to be putting some of the shows on Spotify. Black Men Can Talk. So BLK Men Can Talk. So look out for Black Men Can Talk on Spotify. We'll be uploading some of the episodes there. So if you want to listen to the audio or the video, right, while you're doing your thing, get ready for that. You know, merchandise is coming.
Oh, wow.
We're looking at membership, right? So we come.
If you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us at blackmencantalk@gmail.com. Again, you know, future topics, etc. We will be, again, the requests have been coming in for some co-ed conversations, so that will be coming as well. So
ready for that. Bring them on. Ready for that. Shakoy says, I will. Good. That means you're going to request. Yes, we want you on. And she says, yes, for sure. And Miss Hibbert, it's been a minute that I've chatted with you. It has been a minute.
You need some more koi, as Koi says, Shakoy, right? Need some more koi. We got you. We got your tagline, Shakoy. We're not sleeping on that.
Love that.
Need some more koi in your life. I remember that.
I want to shout out our sister because she took it upon herself to create a group to bring black men together. So some of the brothers from various different men's groups that are in the city, fathers groups, etc. She said, you know what? I'm tired of just watching and seeing the need for this. So she created a WhatsApp group for brothers, and brought together all various different brothers in that chat for us to connect, and it has continued. And I think she's been trying to step back so that the brothers take over.
And that's the way it should be.
It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. So
no, but that's the way it should be.
100%. Our sisters though. But this is the piece, right, Dr. Vibe? It's the role that, in a lot of ways, that in a lot of cases that our sisters play, and have traditionally played, right? In terms of maintaining that connection of family and community. So they are still coming in and saying brothers need to come together And it's like, this is
I'm
part of
ready.
the
I'm ready to go on for about 2 hours, but it's not going to happen, obviously, because there's a lot I want.
part two.
You know. And she says, "Bless you, kings." Well, bless you back, Shakoy.
Right.
Bless you back. Bless you back. All right. So, as always, we ended off with this: live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small, get stronger, block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher and wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. If you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and make it better. And if anyone was offended by any of the comments that we made today, we weren't made to hurt anybody. We're just speaking our heart and our peace, and we're doing it in love. All right?
I'm going to add something, Dr. Vibe. For the fathers that, and I was in a space where this was said, for the fathers that didn't get to hear from their children today, didn't see their children today, didn't connect with their children today, I'm just going to say,
good piece.
Still make the connection, still make the phone call, still send the text, send the whatever it is, because communication is a two-way street. And I understand that this is our special day and the day that honors us. But if you haven't heard from your children, you haven't been able to connect with your children, and there's an opportunity for you to do that, still do it, because at the end of the day, communication is a two-way street. So just the fact that you put the call out, just the fact that you put the message out, even though it's your day, it also speaks to your leadership as a man. It also speaks to your own opportunity that you're saying, I'm willing to be uncomfortable, so to speak, and be vulnerable to put that call out, because you never know what it could mean on the other side. It could be your child saying, well, I didn't hear from him, so I'm not going to call. And it's that back and forth, when no, that can't be said. You made the connection. You tried to reach out. You tried to do what needed to be done. So reach into that vulnerable space if you need to, brothers. And again, connect with us. Black Men Can Talk, BLKMEN CANTALK, Black Men Can Talk, at gmail.com. Looking forward to maintaining the connection. And this is how we heal. This is how we grow.
Heal and grow, heal and grow, heal and grow. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Time that our parents, they're like, I have nothing to teach you. I don't know nothing. And
my dad's at that point now. It says,
That's my point.
But I'm saying, no, Dad, you got lots more to give. You know how cold it is when these two brothers in their yard.
You know that. You know that. You don't know that, bro. You know
No
that.
joke.
I know we all have these things, but you know what? My go-to is this thing.
Wow.
Black book. It's in his black.
Black book.
Men Talk, Black Book.